This is Ray Flores for the Boxing Channel, getting set for Canelo and Triple G this upcoming Saturday live on HBO pay-per-view, alongside Kieran Mulvaney, who does a wonderful job breaking down the sweet science for HBO. Kieran, as we get set for a massive fight week with Triple G and Canelo, you interviewed both guys during the grand arrivals. What did you take away from your talks with them?
When they get to this point, as you well know, in the fight week, they're both, when you have this level of fighter, you're ready, you're set. One of the things that I've really noticed with Canelo over the years, and maybe you have too, is he's not just become a better fighter, he's become a better interview, don't you think? I mean, he knows what you want, he knows how to give it to you, he gives you the really good answers. He has felt to me like for a couple of years like now a guy who is unbelievably self-confident and growing in self-confidence. This is a man who's coming into his prime, and I think the question is going to be whether Gennady Golovkin is still in his prime and whether he's going to be able to fend him off or not.
Now, getting to Gennady Golovkin, when people are questioning whether or not he's in his prime or not, do you think that it is a case where people underestimated how good Daniel Jacobs is? Because Jacobs, very impressive and is one of the top middleweights in the world, but people were saying, well, is Triple G what he used to be?
Styles make fights, right? And I think it was just a very difficult fight style-wise for Gennady. Guy's a southpaw. He's taller than Gennady, which Gennady isn't used to. Big, long range, good long reach, good footwork. And he was probably huge on Saturday night. We had that weigh-in, if you remember, something like 10 a.m. on the Friday. So he had plenty of time to become absolutely huge. All those attributes, southpaw, good footwork, taller than Gennady, none of them Canelo has, right? So it'll be a whole different deal. And people also looked at the Kell Brook fight. Oh, he got hit, and that goes to show that we set the bar so high for Gennady that if he gets hit, we're like, oh, he must be fading. And then he went out and, of course, and literally broke the guy's face, which people seem to forget against Kell Brook. So, yeah, you could look at it and think, oh, maybe he's getting hit more, maybe he's slipping. I just think there was a couple of cases against Kell Brook. He knew that he couldn't get hurt. And against Daniel Jacobs, I think you're exactly right. It was a very difficult style matchup for him, and Daniel Jacobs is that good.
Well, we've seen during the course of history that middleweights seem to have better success. There are some of them later on in their careers, Sergio Martinez being one of them, and Gennady Golovkin. Look, 35 years old. I mean, it's interesting. You and I were talking about the Chocolatito fight. Lighter weight classes, 30 years old is old, but in the middleweight division, depending on your caliber, 35 is still not old.
Right. And here's the great thing about Gennady. I got to go to his camp, early in camp, up in Big Bear. I sat down and I looked at him. This was like the second week of camp. And I said, Gennady, you look pretty good. Are you like 170 already? And he smiles. He goes, no. I just ate breakfast, 172. If you take care of yourself, like, the big difference with Chocolatito, he'd come up from fighting at 105, and he was still struggling to make 115. He's a little guy, but he still struggles even to make that weight. When you don't punish yourself physically between fights, when you walk around at 170 and fight at 160 like Gennady does, I think you have a lot less wear and tear on your body, and I think so he's always in shape, he's always ready to go, and I think that will probably help him immensely.
Now, and looking at for Canelo Alvarez, we've seen his recent matchups of victory over Amir Khan, fighting one Julio Cesar Chavez, Liam Smith. What do you take away from that last victory over Julio Cesar Chavez? Because the knock on Canelo in that fight is that he didn't find a way to finish off Chavez Jr.
Well, Chavez Jr. has always had a pretty good chin. I mean, when he got stopped, it was as much, that one time, it's as much because of his own lack of conditioning as anything. And I think Chavez came into that trying to survive that fight. So I don't think that's a real knock on him. And Canelo fought the way that he wanted to fight. I think the bigger issue, when we look at how well Canelo's done over the last few years and the guys he's been knocking out and how spectacular he's been knocking them out, is he's been knocking out smaller guys or less good guys. He hasn't fought a natural middleweight who can hit like a mule, and who apparently has a chin that's made out of some superhuman substance, right? So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. And, it's interesting. It looks to me as if Canelo he's bulked up. He's looking very muscular there. And I think that's because he recognizes that at some point this fight is going to be fought in the trenches, and he'd better be as strong as he can possibly be if he's going to keep Gennady Golovkin off of him.
So if they win, the winner of this matchup, do you think that they are top 3 pound for pound? I mean, we always hear about this mythical pound for pound rankings. Do you think that a victory over the other could propel them into the top 3, or an emphatic victory could make them actually number 1?
At least top 4, right? I think right now we have Andre Ward, Vasily Lomachenko, Terence Crawford. A clear victory puts the winner in somewhere in that matchup. And where I think, like you said, depends on the nature of the victory, how impressive it is. But I think we would then clearly have 4 elite fighters that are pulling away from the rest of the pack. And where that sorts itself out, we'll know a bit more on Sunday morning, I think.
And finally, before I let you go, the co-main event has me really excited. Joseph Diaz and Jorge Lara. Diaz, 2012 Olympian. We've seen the 2012 Olympians grow and prosper and develop, become world champions, challenge for a world title. Jojo Diaz is trying to become that next guy. Jorge Lara, strong, powerful, erratic, but boy, can he hit like a mule. I think this is going to be a fun matchup at 126.
Jorge Lara is a bad man. Just everything about him exudes a real toughness to him. And, you know, I love to watch Jojo Diaz. He's a beautiful boxer. Wish he had a bit more pop on him. He's going to need to probably find a bit more pop to keep Lara off of him. So that's going to be very interesting. I love everything about Jojo Diaz. The way he comports himself outside the ring, the way he talks to media, the way he talks to the public. If he needs that signature win now. He's at that point where he boxes very well. He's a delight for purists to watch. Not necessarily yet that kind of crossover star with his style. If he can find that extra something, and he may well need to find it to keep Lara off of him, then I think Jojo Diaz is going to be a star.
It should be an interesting matchup. Kieran, thanks so much for your time. We won't ask you for your predictions because I'm sure everyone in the world is going to ask you, but I'm sure you're expecting a heck of a matchup in the main event, the co-main event.
That's the only prediction. It's going to be... We have a fight, a real fight. And it's one of those things where early in fight week, I already have that kind of tension. You know what I mean? That kind of excitement, anticipation. What are we going to see? I have no idea what we're going to see except a fight.
Kieran, thank you very much for your time. Kieran Mulvaney from HBO. Ray Flores here for the Boxing Channel.